Hello everybody and welcome to Across the Table. My name is Neeber and this is a board game gateway review series where we're going to be taking you into the games that we talk about and play, and we find about what do we like, what's questionable, what are the quirks, and finally what do we ultimately think about these games that we play and we talk about. In this very first review we are going to be talking about Arcs, published by Leader Games and designed by Cole Worley. Just remember before we get started that everything expressed in this video is my personal opinion, so whether or not you agree, whether or not you disagree, that's fine, but let's make sure that we keep the discussion civil, and feel free to discuss down below things that you disagree or agree with me with in those comments. But enough blabbing in the intro, let's get to the overview. Arcs is the latest four-letter board game from Leader Games in the trilogy that is Root, Oath, and now Arcs. Arcs is a space sci-fi epic that has hand management, area control, card play, and a lot of other little intricacies that we may or may not get to in this review. But just know that if you're a fan of those Twilight Imperium sort of games, space games like Eclipse, this takes that sort of experience and dials it down into a package that is anywhere from 2 to maximum about 3 hours, depending on how many players that you have. This is a game in which you are going to have high interaction with the other players. You're going to be talking around the table, you're going to be looking at what everyone does, because in the game of Arcs, what everyone does really does matter. But how do we actually play the game? Well, let's get into that. To win a game of Arcs, you have to get the most points. And most games, that's kind of the same. And in Arcs, it's no different, except in this game, it is a race to 30 points. It can be lower if you're playing with different player counts, but let's just keep it at 30 to keep it simple. In this game, the end game is triggered by one of two conditions. Either one player will get to 30 points, in which case they trigger the end game, or the second condition, which is that we play out 5 rounds, also known as chapters here in Arcs. The way that the game works is that in each chapter, you are going to be given a hand of cards, represented by these cards that you can see here. The cards have all come in 4 different suits, and all of those suits represent different kind of themes that you can do in this game, such as one is focused towards warfare, the other is intrigue, and the other one production, movement, a whole bunch of different things, and they are varied. If you're familiar with card games, a lot of these mechanics are going to make a lot of sense to you. What you're going to do is that one player is going to become the lead player for this particular turn, and they're going to take one of their cards and they're going to place them face up, setting the suit for the round. And not only the suit, that's going to have the value of the suit that they are playing. The higher the number of cards, the less amount of actions that you have, but by being in the lead, you get to dictate what we're about to do for this turn, because everyone else can either do one of 3 things. They can either surpass your value, i.e. grabbing the lead from you coming the next turn, they can copy your action, only getting 1, but they have to play less, or they can pivot, meaning that they can play a card face down and they can do one of the other 4 suits, kind of like trumping or playing off suit, if you will, in those sorts of games. And the great thing about this is that these cards will dictate where we're going to play. So getting the lead is very, very important here in Arcs, because if you are the one who is leading, you get to dictate, well, maybe we don't really want to do a lot of warfare in this particular game because I am going to be leading and I don't have the army. So you're going to be playing cards from your hand into this area over here to dictate what you can do on your turn. But what can we actually do on our turn? Well, that's where the meat and bones of this game is. As it is a strategy game, you're going to be jostling and moving around this game board that we have here in front of us, trying to get into a better position to do one of 5 main kind of objectives, which can be seen here on the left-hand side of the board. There are 5 different objectives that you can play, but only 3 of them, up to 3 of them, can be done in this particular chapter. Well, the person who leads gets to actually choose what objectives we're going to be playing for. And they could be, hey, you want to be the resource tycoon? Collect more resources. Hey, you want to be a tyrant and capturing political figures and your opponent's meeples? Do that. You want to be the warlord and go fight them all and shoot all of their ships and destroy them and buildings and get their trophy and hold them as trophies? That's something that you could do. And then the other ones that we have are the keeper and the empath. Those are also having the most amount of symbols of that particular type here in your player area. Now, as you can see here in front of me, I've got the 4-player board set up in front of me. We have a lot of dice. And that is one of the very central mechanics of playing this game as well, because not only are we going to be playing cards from our hand, then what we are trying to do is set up our turns in a way that matches what our cards are. Whilst we have a big game of space fighting and ships going on over here on the game board, one of the most intriguing parts of this game is the intrigue of the court that we have over here on the left-hand side of the board. The court is a part of the game in which you are going to be battling with the other players to gain majority of these guilds or vox cards, as I kind of explained. These cards can do a lot of things, from different things to making you a cartel leader of specific resources. They may give you one-off abilities that you can be able to use here coming out on the game board. They can also do things that will change the game state that we see here in front of us. And a lot of the battle that we're going to be playing can be over here on this court side. This does not seem like a big part of the game, but once you actually start playing, you actually start realizing how involved it is, as you and your opponents will be jostling to get majority of this particular court. Because here's the thing about the game, which is that if I take a particular card and I have the majority on it, great, I get the card. But not only do I get the card, I get every single meeple who was on that card who was battling it for me. So if I know that someone really wants it, I know that they're willing to put their meeples on there. I have to be very careful, because if they're able to take the card from me, I'm going to lose some workers and give them some captives that they can use for objectives later in the game. So not only are we fighting with our ships and trying to make a big kind of production engine out here in front of us, we are also trying to fight on a political stage over here on the left-hand side of the board, which is what gives it that diplomacy feeling here in Arcs. Another thing about the game, which is super interesting, is the fact that on your player board here in front of you, you actually have to be able to unlock different storage aspects by producing more things on the game board, by producing more cities and more stargates, which allow your ships to jump around the galaxy. You are unlocking more storage for more tokens that you see here in the game board. And the tokens are a very big part of this game as well. Not only are we actually saving them for objectives here in the end of the chapters, but we can also use them for one-off benefits at the beginning of our turn. We can use them to do things such as gain extra turns, gain specific actions. We can actually do a whole bunch of things based on these tokens. So not only am I playing a delicate balancing act of figuring out whether or not I want these tokens to be in my game board so that I can use them for my objectives, or am I actually stockpiling them for a massive turn coming up in the near future? Maybe I'm going to give myself extra actions. Maybe I'm going to give myself the ability to secure a court card over here on the left using those tokens. There's a whole bunch of other little aspects about this game that when we start getting into the nitty-gritty, start to thematically make a lot of sense with this game. I.e., we can have uprisings and have people go into uproar about specific things that we've done in this game based on have we gone and destroyed other people's things. So not only are you encouraged to kind of go to war, but you're encouraged not to be a complete and utter beehole about it. You really want to go and absolutely get your points, but not at the cost of your popularity and at the cost of your empire satisfaction. Now, you're starting to hear me talk about what it is that I kind of like about this game. So let's get into what it is that I do like about this game. Point number one that I really like. The first one is going to be the style and the artwork of this game. And there's one thing you can say about leader games of Root, Arcs, and even Oath. You may not necessarily like the way that they play, but you have to admit they do look spectacular. And Arcs completely keeps on trend, and I think is probably one of the best looking games that they have made in so far. The game itself is dripping with theme and style. They take this very cartoony aesthetic that they have, but they turn it and it just evokes so much emotion on the game board. The second thing that I really like about Arcs is the high player interactivity. This is a game that requires you to look at what every other player is doing around the board, because it will directly affect you. Now, for some people that could be a negative, but for me personally, I think it's it is an absolute positive. In this game, you really do need to be aware of where your players, your opponents are kind of maneuvering around the board and what it is that you think that they may be trying to do. Because if you're not, you're going to be finding yourself on the back end of some plans that have been made. Plans within more plans. However, the great thing about this game is that it is very simple to read. So coming off my first point that I really like, the style and the theme of this game, that what they've done is they've taken the artwork, but they have given you a very high contrast board with the color scheme, and I think it works really well. I look at it and I can see where all of the players are at any time. I can see where their units are and what they're doing. The third thing that I really like about this game is their variable setup. And I've played this game now a few times at different player counts, and every single time I've had a different starting position. I have played this game at its absolute base, where they recommend your tutorial setup, and I've also played it with the lore and leader expansion packs, where each alien is given different ships and different starting locations based on what their race is. Because I really enjoy when a game doesn't just necessarily start you in the same position, but it's variable enough that it makes me excited to see what it is, but not so wacky that I'd feel like I couldn't figure out why I'm starting in a particular way on the game board. But that's something that I really like, and I like the way that Arx has implemented it here on their game board. The fourth thing that I really like about this game is I really like how replayable this game is. Now, especially, I would say that the lore and leader pack is an absolute necessary. It does come with a couple in the game box for you already, but the lore and leader cards, which are your starting player cards that dictate what alien race you're going to be playing, as well as a little special ability / quirk to your alien race, it gives you a sense of, well, I can play my alien race and play it as I want, and the next time that I play this game, I'm going to get something completely different, which means that I have to change my play style a little bit to suit what it is that my alien race will want to do. Another thing about this game is this awesome little player sheet that every player is given to you. It is a back-to-back A4 sheet of paper that folded up into a little A5 menu. This sheet is probably one of the best player aids that I think I've had with the pleasure of playing with in a very long time. It takes everything you can do in this game and also then puts it here right at your fingertips in this very kind of nice reading style. It does give you the breakdown here very easily of how everything is going to work from your turn to what it is you can do. Here, action summaries right at your fingertips. So you're never really feeling like you're fighting the game, but this menu here will give you the ability to get you right into the action and play with your friends as fast as possible. Kind of spoiling a little bit of what my opinion of this game is, let's get on to, though, what I find questionable about the game. So the thing that I find questionable about this game is one thing in particular, but it affects basically how the rest of this game plays, and that is the reliance on the luck of the draw and the luck of the dice roll. And what do I mean by that? Well, the one thing about this game, which is that if you're into card games, you will know that a lot of your hands can sometimes be dictated by the luck of the draw, i.e. you are given all of the powerful cards, the bowers, the joker, high cards that you think you can lead a hand with. And this problem kind of trickles its way into Arx. It's not something that can't be overcome, but the game, you need to know about it going into this game, which is having the lead in this game is super important, because if you do not have the good cards, you are just going to be left wondering what it is that you can do. Grabbing the lead in this game, i.e. grabbing this little center pawn here, is something that is very, very important to do, because it can dictate the fact that maybe you get more actions to do than the next person. And it does feel really bad if you're sitting on the back end going, well, I really want to do this, but my plans are completely and utterly shot because I don't have the lead. The other thing is that depending on how you go per chapter, at the end of every chapter, as we shift further up the game board, you get given a new set of hands. So that means you are going to have to take this chapter by chapter. You cannot forward plan more than this current chapter or round of turns, because let's say, for example, I'm going for a full scale invasion on one of my opponents. There is a good chance that you may not get the cards that allow you to do that in the next chapter. That is what the game is expecting you to do as well, by the way, but it is something that does not mean that you can set up your plans for 2 hours from now. At most, you can do it for half an hour from now. So that means you have to look around the game space and figure out how much you have left in this chapter and make each chapter worth it. The other thing that I meant by the luck of the dice roll is that there are 3 different colors of dice here. And the way that battling works in this game is it's simple dice rolling. I'm going to move into your sector and I'm going to start rolling dice to see if I can damage you. You want a nice and easy blue dice. That means that you have a 50% chance of hitting. Do you want a red dice? That means that you have a much greater chance of hitting and doing critical hits, but there is actually a chance of getting damaged and doing self-damage to yourself. Or there's the orange dice, in which you can potentially go and raid other people's courts and their production centers wherever you are invading. If you are the one who is attacking first, you get to roll all the dice, choose what dice, and then you get to choose what it is that you are going to do that turn. That means that if you go in with your entire fleet, it is entirely possible that you could have 0 hits with 5 ships against 1, and then nothing happens. And I have seen it happen a few times in games. That does not feel good to be the attacker. However, that is what the game is. So you need to go into this knowing, well, maybe you're going to have to risk it. However, relying on dice after you have been spending an entire turn trying to set up a plan does feel really bad if you do not successfully make it out of that particular battle. So keep that in mind. The luck of the dice and the luck of the draw can and have been a bit of a downer in this game, but knowing that they're in there, it's up to you to mitigate those going forward. So let's go and have a chat about now what one of the quirks of this game is, and then we'll move on to my final opinion. One of the quirks of these sorts of games that you have to understand is that Arcs keeps this race to 30 points very similar to what it has done in games like Root. And that's something that you have to know going into this, which is that this is a high interaction game with players, and that's great. However, it does require the players to keep each other in check. It is very possible that one person can scream out to a massive lead, and they will continue to keep that lead unless everybody starts piling in on the leader. And in classic kind of leader game, Root, and even in Arcs, it really does pay to be in second a lot of the time and not be the number one target of everyone at the game board. That's not to say that it doesn't help to be in first, but you really do need to know that going into this game is that if one person is not lifting up the rest of the table, i.e. helping out the general cause of stopping player X from winning the game, you may feel like, well, it's going to be inevitable that player X is going to win the game. That's a quirk of these sorts of games, and I do find that here in Arcs, it is less of a problem than, say, when I've been playing Root, and I use that game for comparison because this is obviously taken from that initial game design and implemented and incremented on it further, but it is something to be aware of, because if you are playing Arcs, you really do need to be aware of what the other players are doing and what it is they're trying to score. So maybe this particular chapter, you're going to be the one to set the particular scores so that they cannot get their particular objectives. That's up to you and the rest of the players, and something you need to be aware of before playing this game. It is very possible that someone could finish the game at 30 points whilst someone else is on 4 points. I have seen it happen. However, on the flip side, I have also seen games finish where every player is finished within 2 points of each other. It is up to you on the table to keep on top of each other and kind of stopping the people from running away, and that is something that can feel bad if you're the person in first, because it really does feel like everybody is ganging up on you. But that's part of the game. That's a strategy game, that's a space opera, and that's Arcs. But if that sounds like something that you'd be willing to try, then you potentially could be in for a really good time here. Anyway, that's the overview of the game. That's my likes, that's the quirks. Let's get into my final opinion, however. So if you couldn't tell from the rest of this review, I really, really like Arcs. I think it is a great game. However, I do completely understand the people who don't like it, who can't get past the luck of the draw and the luck of the randomness of the dice rolling. I also understand that this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Being such a high player interaction, some people may not feel comfortable with getting into each other's faces, with going and attacking other people, because if I don't, they will win. Some people may not feel okay with backstabbing each other because they saw a specific win condition that they may be able to get with a position that was completely left open. You have to exploit each other's weaknesses in this game. That's kind of how it all works. That is what happens in a tactical game such as Arcs. And I really like it. I love the style. I love the theme. I'm not put off by the randomness of the dice because it really incentivizes you to go and battle. It really incentivizes you to take a fleet, go over there and battle, and try again and keep rolling the dice, because it always benefits the attacker. I think this game is dripping in that kind of style that a lot of these games, space games, really want. I was compared, as you can see here behind me, I have Twilight Imperium, one of my favorite games, and a lot of people compared, saying it is a better version of that game and condensed down into 2 hours. And I would agree that it definitely is that style of game condensed, but it is not a 4X sort of game anymore. It is a strategy game with card play based as its central mechanic. In one of my games, I played a variation where my alien meant that I was essentially the toll collector of the universe. I was going around to everybody's cities, and instead of destroying them, I was taking taxes, i.e. robbing the players of all of their resources. And I thought that was great. I played that up like as if I was the sheriff of Nottingham, and that really appealed to me. I really like that game. I can see why a lot of people would struggle to not, and that's okay. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear about what you think about it. If you are in for a game that has a lot of strategy and has a lot of replayability, it takes the sci-fi theme and oozes it out all of its pores, but at the same time, you've got to be okay with a little bit of luck and a little bit of getting in your friends' faces, then I think you're going to have a great time with Arks. My name is Neeber, and that is my thoughts on the game of Arks. But what do you think about the game of Arks? I would like to hear it in the comments down below. I'd also like to point out, guys, as we come to the end here, that this is the first video in a series of videos that we're going to be doing our review series. This is a new style of videos that we're trying out, and I do know that this one's probably going to be a bit rough. And hopefully as we do more of these, we'll get better and be able to express our thoughts and our opinions in a much more eloquent way, I hope. But I hope this is some of the content that you would like to see, and if that's the case, I'd love it to hear from you down in the comments below. If you also think of what we could do better, I'd love to hear that in the comments as well. Please do not hesitate to let us know. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button as well. Here on YouTube, only 10% of the people who actually watch our videos are actually subscribed to our YouTube channel, and we'd love to do more of this content. We've got more games, as you can see right behind me, and in plenty of our collections that we would love to do official reviews on. So if that is something that you would like to see, make sure you let us know down below. Until the next time, my name was Neeber, and I'll see you across the table next time. See you guys.